Like, subscribe, and comment if you can handle the truth. Because once you hear this, there's no going back. The sirens cut through the rain like knives. Red and blue lights bounced off the wet asphalt as a black Lexus fishtailed through a quiet suburban street outside Columbus, Ohio. It was 2:17 a.m. when Michael Turner slammed the brakes, ditched the car, and ran, suit jacket flapping, dress shoes slipping in the mud. Neighbors would later say they woke up to shouting, the crackle of police radios, the sound of a man sobbing as he disappeared into the darkness behind a row of identical homes. By sunrise, the police would be calling it a financial crimes investigation. By nightfall, it would be something much darker. Michael Turner was not supposed to be here. 42 years old, senior compliance manager at a regional investment firm. Married, on paper, clean record. The kind of man whose name didn't show up in police databases or gossip blogs. The kind of man family courts quietly bled dry. Because for the past 11 years, Michael Turner had been paying child support for 3 children who, according to court documents, were legally his. But biologically, that question had just ignited a firestorm. The case officially began with a body, or at least, what investigators first feared was one. Inside a rented storage unit 15 miles away, police responding to an anonymous tip forced open a rusted metal door. The smell hit them instantly: damp concrete, mold, and something metallic. Floodlights revealed a large plastic bin sealed with duct tape, labeled in black marker. Tax records, 2016. When they cut it open, they didn't find a corpse. They found files, thousands of pages, DNA test results, court transcripts, bank transfers, private investigator invoices, and a handwritten note, scrawled so hard the pen tore through the paper. They stole my life. Now I'm taking it back. Michael Turner wasn't running from a crime. He was running from a truth that had just escaped containment. To understand how it reached this point, you had to rewind to the man Michael used to be. A decade earlier, he was the dependable one, the fixer. The man who paid on time, showed up to soccer games, attended parent-teacher meetings even when the kids didn't look like him. First was Amanda's son, then Rebecca's daughter, then Laura's twins, born during a brief reconciliation that ended in court faster than it began. 3 women, 3 cases, 3 child support orders, different judges, different counties, one common denominator. Michael never questioned paternity, at least, not publicly. Privately, something gnawed at him. The math didn't make sense. The timelines overlapped. The children shared features Michael didn't recognize: dark curls when his hair was straight, olive skin when his was pale, a dimple no one in his family had ever had. He asked questions. He was shut down. You're their father. End of discussion. By year 5, Michael was paying nearly 60% of his income to family court. His retirement account vanished. His savings followed. When he fell behind once, just once, the state froze his accounts and threatened jail. That was when he hired a private investigator. And that was when everything cracked. The investigator's name never appeared in the official report, but the results did. 3 DNA tests, all conducted quietly, all confirmed by independent labs. 0% probability. 3 children, none biologically his. Michael didn't explode. He didn't scream. He didn't confront the women. He started collecting evidence. Over the next 2 years, he built a secret archive. Messages suggesting infidelity, medical records contradicting conception dates, whispered rumors of a man known only as D. A man who appeared in all 3 women's lives around the same time. Then, 6 weeks before the police chase, Michael filed sealed motions in 2 counties to reopen his child support cases. The courts rejected them. No explanation. No hearing. No appeal. That was when Michael stopped paying. And that was when someone died. The death wasn't publicized at first. A man in his late 40s found unresponsive in a motel outside Dayton. Official cause: overdose. No next of kin. No autopsy requested. But buried in Michael S. storage unit files was a photograph of that man, standing between Amanda and Rebecca at a backyard barbecue, arms slung casually around both women. On the back, written in the same angry handwriting, their real father. And taped to the photo, a motel key card dated 3 days before Michael ran from the police. But the most chilling detail hadn't been noticed yet, because when investigators cross-checked the motel's security footage, Michael Turner had checked in under his real name and checked out alone. But when they finally unlocked the second storage bin, hidden behind a false wall, What they found would force the detectives to ask a terrifying question. Was Michael Turner exposing a scandal or covering up a murder? In the quiet suburbs of Northwood, a routine case of unpaid child support takes a dark and unexpected turn. It all started when Olivia Hayes reported her ex-husband, Michael Turner, for failing to pay child support for their 2 children. But when Detective Laura Hensley went to Turner's last known address, she didn't find him. Instead, she found his roommate, Daniel Ruiz, dead on the living room floor. At first glance, it looked like a straightforward tragedy. The medical examiner initially ruled Ruiz's death as an accidental overdose. He had a history of substance abuse, and the scene seemed to support this conclusion. But Detective Hensley had a nagging feeling that something was off. Michael Turner was nowhere to be found, and his car was also missing. It seemed too convenient that he would disappear right as his roommate died. Hensley decided to dig deeper. She interviewed Olivia Hayes again. Olivia painted a picture of a strained relationship with Turner. They had divorced years ago, and while Turner had visitation rights, his involvement with their kids was inconsistent. Lately, his payments had stopped altogether. Olivia mentioned that Turner had been secretive, especially about his roommate, Daniel Ruiz. She'd only met Ruiz once and described him as quiet and withdrawn. The investigation led Hensley to Turner and Ruiz's shared workplace, a local construction company. Their boss described Turner as a reliable worker, but one who kept to himself. Ruiz, on the other hand, was a recent hire and had a reputation for being a bit of a loner. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, yet Hensley couldn't shake the feeling that a crucial piece of the puzzle was missing. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A neighbor who lived across the street from Turner and Ruiz's apartment came forward. She told detectives she'd heard a loud argument the night before Ruiz's body was discovered. She couldn't make out the words, but she heard 2 men shouting, followed by a loud thud. Shortly after, she saw Michael Turner speeding away in his car. This new information changed everything. The case was no longer a simple accidental death. It was now a potential homicide, and Michael Turner was the prime suspect. An all-points bulletin was issued for Turner and his vehicle. Hensley believed Turner was on the run, but why? Was he running from a child support warrant, or was he fleeing the scene of a murder? As the search for Turner intensified, Hensley revisited Ruiz's life. She discovered that Ruiz had recently come into a large sum of money from an inheritance. He had been trying to get his life back on track, and friends said he was excited about starting fresh. This new detail added another layer of complexity. Could money have been the motive for the argument the neighbor heard? The plot thickened when the full toxicology report for Daniel Ruiz came back. It confirmed the presence of opioids, but at a level far higher than what would be considered accidental, even for a user. More importantly, it detected a fast-acting sedative that wasn't part of any prescription Ruiz had. This was a clear sign of foul play. The medical examiner officially changed the cause of death to homicide. Now, finding Michael Turner was more critical than ever. Hensley and her team worked tirelessly, tracking his digital footprint and financial records. They discovered he had used his credit card at a gas station 200 miles north, just hours after the neighbor saw him drive away. He was heading for the Canadian border. The race was on to intercept him before he could disappear forever. Acting on a tip from a motel clerk who recognized Turner from the news, police located his car parked outside a small, rundown motel just south of the border. A tactical team was assembled. As they surrounded the room, the tension was palpable. Hensley, standing by, hoped for a peaceful resolution. After a brief and tense standoff, Michael Turner surrendered without a fight. In the interrogation room, Turner was a broken man. He confessed everything. The argument wasn't about the inheritance, but it was connected. Ruiz had offered to lend Turner the money he needed to pay his child support and get his life in order. But Turner, overwhelmed by shame and stress, had refused the help. The argument escalated, and in a moment of rage, Turner pushed Ruiz. Ruiz fell, hit his head on the corner of a coffee table, and was knocked unconscious. Panicked, Turner didn't call for help. Instead, knowing about Ruiz's history, he made a fateful decision. He crushed a handful of Ruiz's old painkillers and the sedative, mixing them into a drink, and forced it down Ruiz's throat to stage an overdose. He then packed a bag, grabbed what cash he could find, and fled. Michael Turner was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The case that began with a simple child support complaint had unraveled a story of desperation, anger, and a tragic, irreversible mistake. For Detective Hensley, it was a somber reminder that behind every case, there's a web of human emotions that can lead to devastating consequences. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime investigations. See you next time.
Some called Michael a monster who snapped. Others called him a victim who was finally pushed too far. Then, 3 days into the manhunt, someone else vanished. The private investigator, his office was found ransacked. Filing cabinets overturned. Hard drives removed with surgical precision. No signs of forced entry. No blood, no note. Just an empty chair and a security camera feed that cut out at exactly 11:43 p.m., the same time Michael Turner's burner phone briefly pinged a cell tower 20 miles away. The implication was chilling. Michael wasn't alone. Detective Hensley began to suspect this case wasn't spiraling, it was being dismantled. Evidence disappeared before warrants could be signed. Witnesses suddenly couldn't remember. An anonymous tip that led police to the first storage unit was traced back to a prepaid phone activated under false name, but purchased with a credit card belonging to Laura. When confronted, she finally spoke. Barely above a whisper, she said, "Daniel told us he had a plan. He said Michael was safe, that the money would keep coming, that no one would ever know." "Know what?" Hensley asked. Laura swallowed hard. That Daniel had threatened Michael. That he told him if he ever stopped paying, the kids would lose everything: schools, homes, healthcare. The room went silent. Extortion. That changed everything. But before detectives could push further, an alert came through, one that froze the entire task force in place. Michael Turner's Lexus had just been found, abandoned, engine cold, trunk open. Inside the trunk was a single item, placed dead center like an offering. A manila envelope. Inside were copies of court documents, DNA results, and a final typed letter addressed to the state family court. At the bottom, one line stood out, underlined twice: "You forced me to choose between prison and justice," and stamped across the page in red ink. Something that made Detective Hensley's blood run cold was a court hearing date, scheduled for tomorrow morning, in Michael Turner's name, even though no one had any idea where he was, or whether he'd still be alive to attend it.
The courtroom was already full when the clock struck 9 a.m. Reporters packed the back rows, whispering urgently into phones. Cameras were banned, but that didn't stop the electricity in the air, the sense that something historic and possibly dangerous was about to happen. On the docket, highlighted in yellow, sat a case that technically shouldn't exist. Michael Turner versus the state. An empty chair waited at the defense table. Detective Laura Hensley stood near the rear exit, eyes scanning every face, every twitch, every hand that slipped into a pocket too slowly. No one believed Michael would show, and yet, no one could shake the feeling that he would. At 9:07 a.m., the judge entered. At 9:09, the clerk called the case. At 9:11, the courtroom doors opened. Michael Turner walked in calmly, wearing the same suit from the motel receipt photo. His face looked thinner, hollowed out by exhaustion, but his posture was straight, resolved. He didn't look like a man on the run. He looked like a man who had reached the end of a tunnel. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters surged forward. The judge demanded order. Michael didn't look at the gallery. He looked straight at the bench. "I'm here," he said evenly, "just like the law told me to be." He was taken into custody immediately. The hearing was brief, procedural, and devastating. Michael's attorney submitted the evidence Michael had spent years collecting: verified DNA results, timelines proving impossibility, financial records showing more than $1.5 million paid under threat of incarceration. Then came the affidavits, quietly signed by two of the mothers the night before, admitting they had known Michael might not be the father and had been pressured to stay silent. But the moment that broke the room came last. A recorded statement. Michael's voice played through the courtroom speakers, steady but edged with something raw. "They say I should have gone through the proper channels. I did. They say I should have trusted the system. I tried. Every door I knocked on was locked. Every appeal was denied without explanation. I wasn't asking for revenge. I was asking for the truth." He paused. "Daniel Ruiz told me he owned me, that if I stopped paying, he'd make sure I lost everything, including my freedom. I believed him. For years." The prosecution objected. The judge overruled. Then came the bombshell. Michael admitted he had met Daniel at the motel, but he denied killing him. "He was already high when I arrived," Michael said. I wanted him to confess. I wanted him to put it on record. He laughed. He drank. He swallowed more pills. I left when he passed out. I wanted him alive to face what he'd done. The toxicologist testified next. The sedative found in Daniel's system had been administered hours before Michael arrived. Security footage from a clinic, previously missing, surfaced that morning. It showed Daniel arguing with an unidentified man in scrubs. The timestamp matched the window when the drug would have been introduced. The overdose, the expert concluded, was likely accidental or assisted by someone else. Not Michael. The case collapsed inward. Charges related to Daniel Ruiz's death were dropped within hours. But the damage had already spread. A separate investigation into family court procedures was announced before sunset. Judges placed on administrative leave. A review of sealed paternity disputes quietly opened across 3 counties. Advocacy groups flooded the steps of the courthouse, calling the case the cost of ignoring evidence. Michael Turner was released that evening. No apology, no compensation, just a warning not to speak to the press. He didn't. He went home. 3 months passed. The media moved on, but the consequences didn't. Child support orders tied to fraudulent claims were overturned in waves. One of the mothers disappeared from public view entirely. Another changed her name. The third issued a short statement asking for privacy for the sake of the children. Michael never reclaimed the money. Legally, it was gone. But something else happened, quietly, almost invisibly. A civil case was filed under a different name. Not by Michael, by the children. A suit alleging coercion, identity fraud, and emotional harm. Naming not just their mothers, but the institutions that had refused to listen when the truth was first presented. Michael wasn't a plaintiff. He was listed as a witness. And then, just when the story seemed finished, Detective Hensley received one last envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single page. A photocopy of a birth certificate, recently issued. The father's name is blank. At the bottom, written in familiar handwriting, I paid the price. Now they deserve the truth. Michael Turner has never given an interview. He has never written a book. But if this story made your chest tighten, if it made you question who the system really protects, you might want to stay close. Because the next case makes this one look merciful.